my darlings, and welcome back to Of Feathers and Fiction. Today, we got an animal companion back with us. Today we have Bonnie. She is still kind of a baby. How old are you now? She's like 6 months old, so she's like a teenager. Bonnie's been hanging out with me because she's had some issues. I'm not really sure what happened, but she wasn't walking right. So she's hanging out with me. She's regained her strength, which has been really nice to see. Had her on some meds, and she's feeling much better. But if you see her kind of like teeter-tottering around in the background, her strength isn't quite there, but she's getting better every day. The good girl. Mealworms, I'm not forgetting about them. Here, Bun. Today we're going to talk about something I haven't seen many people dive deep on. I've heard other people share similar thoughts, just not as in depth. We're going to talk about Fourth Wing and Iron Flame, but I'm not going to talk about the books in their entirety. However, it's likely I could say spoilers, so if you don't want spoilers, don't watch this video. I feel like it's safe to say at this point, if you don't know the premise of this book, I mean, these books have been out long enough. So I tried to get into the ACOTAR series. I tried so hard because I really wanted to be a part of a fandom and have something that I could like be really excited about with other people. I couldn't get into ACOTAR. I got halfway through the third book and was like, I'm so bored of this whole premise. Then Fourth Wing came out and I was like, oh, hot diggity. This is it. Like, this is going to be the thing. This is going to be the fandom that I'm like, woo, like crazy about. While reading Fourth Wing for the first time, I specifically remember a thought coming into my head. Why are the dragons so lame in this book? Like, that's half of the reason why I was hyped for this, right? Like, I love dragons. I love romance. I'm like, this could be the book that has like all the elements in it that I'm really hoping for. And just the world building around the dragons, I think, is still atrocious. Onyx Storm comes out in just a few days. By the time I'm posting this, I might be posting at the release day or the day after. But maybe Onyx Storm will make the world building more vivid. But I don't have high hopes for that because I think at this point by book 3, book 1 should have established more with the dragons in general. And it just didn't. It fell so flat. And that's what I want to talk about today. I want to talk about the dragons and why the dragons were just such a letdown. As a girl that grew up reading Aragon, I was like, oh my gosh, it's going to be the adult version of Aragon with like the cool stuff with the dragons and whatnot and the lore. And we didn't get it. I think that Rebecca Yarros, she's trying to keep the lore and stuff with the dragons cryptic, which I can get to an extent. However, I don't think it makes for good writing. At this point, I'm not like, I need to find out more about the dragons. At this point, I'm just like, I'm irritated because it feels like Rebecca Yarros didn't know anything about the dragons either. It doesn't feel like she had any of that built up in her mind because we get so very little details about the dragons. It doesn't make for an interesting plot line. It annoys me because it feels like lazy writing. Like when we live in a society that has How to Train Your Dragon. I'm sorry, I need more. And you can keep things mysterious, but still give enough immersive writing and context to make me want to know more. But like I said, at this point, I'm just annoyed. I'm gonna go through some of the things that I think made the dragons in Fourth Wing and Iron Flame, this Empyrean series, so far, just incredibly lackluster and disappointing. Let's start out with the types of dragons. We have black. They're the biggest, baddest. You don't want to mess with them. We have blue. They're ruthless, best in combat. Brown. You don't show weakness to a brown dragon. Green. They're intellectual, rational. Bonnie. Honey bunny. Where are you going? Good save. I have my own dragon over here. She's learning about her wings, huh, Bon? You good? You good? Come here. Come here. Yeah. Why don't you sit over here? Sorry, I could see how you didn't see the edge of the table. She's good. She's good. Anyway, where was I? Green, intellectual, rational. Red, they have a quick temper. How original. Orange, unpredictable. And then there's a 7th den, and that's apparently what Andarna is. Then we have dragon tails. Club tail, morning star tail, dagger tail, sword tail, club tail, scorpion tail, feather tail. In terms of dragon types, that's basically all we get. What? That's it? That's as original as we can get with these things? The dragons do originate from a particular bloodline, but we get so little explanation as to what those bloodlines are, that it's nonsensical, like it doesn't really matter. The only thing that we really get told over and over again is that they're just the colors, like black, blue, brown, green, red, and that immediately disappointed me greatly because I want to hear more context and more details of what colors these dragons are. Are they like solid black? Are they like satin finish, matte finish, glossy? Are there like pastel colors too? Are they vibrant red, orange, or are they more muted? Are they more earth tone like colors? Are they opalescent, monochromatic? I don't know if that's quite the right thing. Opalescent, chrome, pearlescent, duochromatic. Do you know what I mean? I want more context given to what these dragons actually look like. The dragon tails make absolutely no sense, and I'll tell you why. The different tails don't get described as having a different physique with each one. Specifically a club tail. This is the one that kind of sticks out to me the most. When we think of dinosaurs, there's the dinosaur, I think Ankylosaurus. I'm probably saying that wrong. They had a club tail. Their physique is quite, like, they look like they have kind of stubby legs, but they're armored, right? Like they have like heavier armoring looking type scales. We don't get any explanation to the dragon's physiques. Because when I read a club tail, I'm thinking this dragon must be more robust, strong, stout, stocky. Maybe they can still fly, but maybe their strength is in ground combat. Like they can destroy trees and buildings and stuff with their tails. That would make sense to me. The same with like a dagger tail. I would think for a dagger tail, they're more streamlined, they're maybe a little smaller. Maybe they are better at combat in the sky. There's no description as to each dragon that has a different tail having a different type of physique to go along with that tail, which is also a weapon, if you will. I just sit there and I'm imagining a dragon with like a straight up morning star attached to its tail, and it's like, it just, for me, it read as very adolescent, very childish, but I don't even know if that's fair because I feel like children can be far more creative than this. It feels very much like no thought was really put into this. No offense to Rebecca, but it does feel like she just was like, I'm gonna look up a bunch of weapons and that's what I want the tails of my dragons to look like. She could have done that, however, then made it so each dragon was a different physique, had a different fighting style. If we do end up getting more description of that in future books, I'm still going to be rather annoyed because, again, it should have been described right off the bat. You know what I mean? And then if you went into different dragons having different tails and then physiques and fighting styles, then you could even do more world building in that the riders that bond those dragons, they now have a different role in the dragon rider quadrant. So maybe some people they're the ground people, and then there's the air. Like, there could have been different hierarchies and different roles that everybody filled. But again, we don't get any of that, so it falls insanely flat. Like, it just wasn't, like, the dragons weren't the highlight of the story. The dragons are described as being massive. However, we don't get really much of a scale to go off of because there's no scale-like description. So like each dragon, besides in Darna, because she's an adolescent, are described as just like big. That's kind of it. And the other thing that I thought about too is that, again, when you go back to like dragon physique, is that we don't actually get a detailed description of what they really look like. Like there's no description of like, it had sharp, angular features on its face. It had a long snout, it has short snout. It had horns, it didn't have horns. It was built more aerodynamically or not. I couldn't picture really what these look like in my head. And for me, I feel like that's honestly a bit of lazy writing because half the fun of playing around and writing with mythological creatures is getting creative and having fun and describing what they look like. People are still going to develop their own image in their head of what the dragon looks like. However, if you even do just basic descriptions on what they look like, it adds to the world building. It makes it more immersive. That was very disappointing for me as a reader and for me as someone who grew up with the world of Aragon and that being in my head all the time and being probably a large reason why I love these kinds of things as an adult. This fell so flat and it didn't need to. The descriptions are all very, very basic. I want to be able to smell, touch, hear, taste. I want to be able immerse me into this world, right? Another part of this book that irks me is the bonding process with the dragons and riders. It's boring. The dragons, for one, don't seem to like humans at all. And I'm like, okay, I want to know why. Why don't the dragons like people? The dragons bond humans because the dragons power the wards, and then they need the humans' involvement because of the signet power that the riders get from the dragons. They need all of these things to work together to power the wards. If they didn't need us puny humans to develop signet abilities from bonding and weave the protective wards they power around Navarre, I'm pretty sure they'd eat us all and be done. But they like protecting the Vale, the valley behind Basgaia, the dragons call home, from merciless griffins, and we like living, so here we are in the most unlikely of partnerships. It's an unlikely partnership that's full of animosity and disrespect, because the dragons just kill whoever they want whenever they want, and they let their riders fall to their deaths. Humans, in turn, sit there and like make derogatory, nasty comments to the dragons, and I'm like, did I miss something here? If the dragons don't actually like humans, I want to know why. What happened in their history to make the... And then I think if that were the case, like say the dragons don't genuinely trust or like humans, I need some level of explanation as to why that is. And then as a result, I think that needs to be explored more in the books as more of an initial conflict. It doesn't need to be the only conflict, but it needs to be a conflict that's actually explored and discussed. Apparently nothing happened necessarily to make the dragons dislike humans. It's just how dragons are. And I'm like, but why? It just makes for really lackluster writing. Once bonded, riders can't live without their dragons, but most dragons can live just fine after us. It's why they choose carefully, so they're not humiliated by picking a coward. Not that a dragon would ever admit to making a mistake. This whole concept too makes no sense because the dragons will just let their riders fall off their backs when they fly for the first time. Wouldn't that, in a way, be an admission that you as the dragon picked wrong because you didn't pick someone strong enough to stay on your back? I personally think Aragon did a better job handling the concept of a dragon bonding with a rider, because when you, as a rider, bond a dragon, if you die, your dragon dies, vice versa. It doesn't matter how strongly bonded you are or whatever. In Fourth Wing, it does a similar thing. However, the dragon, like I said, a dragon could still live even if their rider dies, because the argument is that bond between a dragon and rider isn't that strong at first. And I just have to say, I think that was a choice that diminished the world building aspect, because it doesn't feel like the bond between a dragon and their rider is all that important. When you bond a dragon, you are like bonded so deeply with them that you can't exist without the other. In Fourth Wing, it makes it so that the dragon and rider bond isn't actually all that strong initially from the start point, and that people can kill a rider in order to bond that dragon. But then it goes back to like, the dragons don't make mistakes with who they pick, yet if their brand new rider is killed by another cadet, then that cadet can then bond with that dragon. But that doesn't make any sense to me, because why would a dragon want to bond with somebody who just killed their new rider? Why would they want to bond? Because to me, that's slimy. That's a dishonest person. Why would you want to bond a literal murderer? Why would you want to do that? The dragons are like, well, I pick people who aren't cowards and who are morally upright. Apparently not all dragons pick morally upright people though, so that's like another element to it as well that makes this whole thing very messy and weird. Dragons can kill whoever they want. Professor Kaori warns that Sigale will like kill anybody around her if Xaden's not around. And I'm just like, but why? The dragons seem to just hate humans. Again, doesn't make much sense, because if Sigale hates another human and she kills that human, say that human and their dragon were bonded super tight, then that risks killing off another dragon. So it's like, oh, Sigale's a navy blue dragon, that means she's especially ruthless. That's not ruthless, that's just you being a bloodthirsty tyrant. They don't coexist. Like, that's kind of what I'm getting, is they don't coexist. Other dragon riders aren't allowed to speak or reference any other dragon. You tell that other kid they're not allowed to talk in my direction. And I'm like, these dragons to me come off as extremely cocky, arrogant, narcissistic for like no reason other than that they're just like, I'm more elite than you. I'm more intelligent than you. I don't think that giving dragons sass and narcissistic tendencies doesn't read to me as intelligent. It reads to me as petty, bloodthirsty creatures. The book just, it tosses back and forth like this. I don't like it. I don't like, I don't like the dragons. If I had to join the Riders Quadrant, if I was forced by my mother, I'd be like, heck no, I don't want to bond a dragon. Those things are freaking nut jobs. I will gladly go into infantry instead. Why would I want to bond a creature that I have no idea if it's like some psychopath? They'll just let me fall to my death because I don't have the training to stay on their back. Like, why would I want to risk my life, put my life in the hands of something that actually doesn't care about me or like me at all? How am I supposed to build a bond with something if it just immediately wants me to fall to my death or get burned up because I lack training and I'm young and I'm still figuring myself out and developing as a human being? So I'm trying to get at here. You know what I'm like, am I making sense? I hope I'm making sense here. In my opinion, I think it would be more immersive and cooler if when a dragon and a rider bond in this Fourth Wing universe, that it's like this all-powerful, searing type, rewrite your DNA almost type bond where it's like you are so connected with this creature that it won't let you die or just go by the wayside. It will fight to the death for you in your honor. Likewise, you would do the same. But there isn't that. So that first flight between Violet and Taryn is so lackluster. I was like, okay, where's like the cool, awesome, epic music? You know, what? Cue How to Train Your Dragon.
Yes! Oh, this is amazing!
I'm not saying that everything needs to be the same as How to Train Your Dragon, but like, come on, that first flight, the music, the feelings, the emotions, the immersion, it's not there in Fourth Wing. It's like, I just bonded a absolutely gigantic dragon that no one has seen in years, and well, no big deal, whatever. Presentation day. Another part that I didn't really find all that intriguing at all. This is the day where the cadets are presented to the dragons before threshing. So basically the humans like walk the runway at a fashion show and the dragons like line the runway and they're like, yes, no, I don't like you. I'm gonna turn you into a rotisserie chicken. The cadets are told to talk to one another as they're walking the runway because it will help the dragons get a sense of who you are and how well you play with others. There's a correlation between bonded cadets and level of chatter. Okay, but again, dragons are highly intelligent creatures according to this world, right? And so they need to hear these people bicker back and forth to get an idea of who they are. Violet and all these people she's walking down the runway with, all they're doing is just standing there bickering with one another. The characters Tynan and Luca, who mean nothing really to the story, but they're like obnoxious the whole time, saying really rude, degrading things about the dragons while they're walking the runway surrounded by dragons. And Darna is there, and she's the only Feathertail, and she's the smallest. And they sit there and they start ridiculing Darna's appearance. It's a mistake, all right. Tynan looks at the golden one and scoffs. You should totally bond it, Sorengale. You're both freakishly weak. It's a match made in heaven. Why is a cadet talking like this in front of dragons? Like, again, the humans don't respect dragons, and the dragons don't respect humans. I guess like one of the things that gets me is that, going back to Aragon, is when Aragon finds Saphira's egg, he doesn't know it's an egg at first, and then eventually she hatches, and his like reaction to her hatching and growing, he has this innate sense of awe towards her. Like, he cannot believe what he's witnessing. Now again, in Aragon's culture, the dragons were supposedly all completely eradicated, so this is like, whoa, earth-shattering for him. In the Empyrean, like, everybody knows that dragons exist. However, not everybody interacts with dragons. It's safe to say that the dragon riders are that small group of people that have access to dragons. Therefore, it's not as earth-shattering that dragons exist. However, I would think being around a creature as monstrously huge and powerful and wise as a dragon would require the utmost level of respect, reverence, and awe. But we don't get that. And it really takes me out of the story. October 1st is always threshing. Violet makes her way through the valley, searching out a dragon. And it says that as she's walking along, she sees other dragons and them bonding their riders and then flying off into the air. And it says that she will look at a dragon and just know that that's not the one she's supposed to bond. But she doesn't know why she knows that. And apparently nobody else does either. It's just this funky little thing. I want to know why she knows when she is supposed to bond a dragon. What does that feel like? Is it a sense of dread? Is it a sense of panic? Does something happen to you in a chemical way in your brain or in your body where like your body responds, like you connect differently, or you hear something, or you feel something, or like your fingers get numb, or your head vibrates. There's no description as to how she can sit there and know that she's not supposed to bond this dragon or this dragon. Violet overhears Jack and whoever, Tynan, talking about how they're gonna go find the Feathertail and axe her because she's a weak link. And I'm like, how again are human beings, how are they to sit there and say like, that dragon is a weak link? Well, how would you know? Like, it's a dragon versus a human. Any dragon is significantly more powerful than a human, the best human, at any time or day or place. I understand we're supposed to, you know, Jack Barlow's really bad. The writing here is very nonsensical. It's for the best, Jack argues, his tone dropping. It's unwritable, a certified freak. And you know how Feathertails are useless in combat. They refuse to fight. His voice fades as they walk further away, headed north. Again, the level of disrespect towards dragons just really doesn't sell any of this for me. And then, you know, Violet goes off. She ends up breaking her ankle trying to rescue Indarna. Because Violet sits there and defends Indarna, that makes Taryn decide that he's going to bond her. And so he just lands and he's like, get on. And I'm like, this is the most lackluster bonding experience I think I've ever read amongst any type of human bonding with another creature. It's so disappointing. Like, there's no sense of ritual or reverence. Again, it's just like, get on and let's go. A low, frustrated grumble sounds in his chest, and then he shocks me to the core as he stretches forward, his front leg becoming a ramp. Dragons never supplicate for anyone, and yet here he is, bowing to make it easier for me to climb on. Why wouldn't any dragon be willing to offer help to their brand new rider to get up on their back? It's a human being. They're like this big and the dragon's like, you know, this big. How are you supposed to get up there? They're an armored, scaled creature. Like, there's no ladder or anything to get up on them with. Heck, some people can't even freaking get on a horse without using a mounting block. And then in this universe, it's like, oh, if a rider can't get on their dragon, just jail. Right away, jail. You can't get on your dragon, jail. You fall off your dragon?
Right to jail, right away.
Except in this case, jail is just, you die. You die. Like, it's so boring. Again, like Taryn being all like, I'll help you. And I'm like, I still don't find I don't find Taryn and Violet's relationship all that endearing, because there is no, to me, it doesn't come off as like there's much of a really strong bond there anyway. There's no real descriptions or time together that they spend that bonds them. I was hoping that that first flight, again, what I mentioned earlier, when they first take off together, when they first bond, there's like something that happens internally, like your DNA is overwritten or whatever, like something all-consuming, all-powerful, and you're like, I am now a dragon rider. And maybe Rebecca Yarros was thinking like, well, I don't want it to be an instantaneous bond. I want it to be something that grows stronger over time. Which, sure, but like, I think initially their bond should be extremely important, like it clicks in place like a puzzle piece falling together, and then it can only get stronger from here on out. And by getting stronger, that means like they're able to control their power more, or their power intensifies, that kind of thing. You can still make it grow over time, but initially I think there needs to be a much larger, better connection than what is written in this book. Taryn and Violet, when they fly off, Violet has a hard time staying on, naturally, as any human would. Even an extremely athletic human would have a hard time riding a dragon, because the amount of muscles that you need, the muscle memory, the muscle development that you would need to stay on the back of a dragon, it would only be developed once you become a dragon rider and actually start training and getting those techniques into your system, so to speak. Violet, like, not being able to stay on Taryn, I'm like, that makes sense, so why wouldn't Taryn help her? Like, why is this such a revolutionary thing that, like, oh, Taryn's like super awesome and gentle because he helps her? All dragons should help their brand new riders stay on, right? If you're not going to provide them with a saddle, there needs to be something that's being done to help keep these poor children on the backs of their dragons that they've never ridden before. You can be strong, but riding a creature like that requires a whole set of strength and skills that none of them have. When they land, Taryn ends up helping Violet get down by like stretching out his leg or something, and she kind of uses it as a slide. Girl is legitimately injured, right? And so other dragons are like standing around, they're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe Taryn's like helping his human. She's physically injured. Why wouldn't he help his brand new rider get down? Only a masochist would sit there and be like, sorry, Cupcake, figure it out. Like, I don't care if you break your other leg getting down off of me. That's just how it goes. Again, like, I appreciate that Taryn helps her, but at the same time, when it comes to like the other dragons, I'm like, are you here to tell me that every single one of these dragons would normally just be like, I don't care if you literally break your face hopping off of me for the first time? Like, you know, that's just how it goes. I don't believe that there's any form of special bond taking place because these dragons literally don't give a rip. Later on, Taryn gets a saddle, and it's a huge deal because nobody wears saddles. It's a seen as an insult to the dragons and blah, 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 blah.
I don't say blah, blah, blah.
I don't understand this one at all. I could go on another separate rant about this, but I firmly believe that in this universe, it makes most sense for saddles to be a thing to keep the riders on the dragons' backs. I argued with some people on TikTok that were like, "Oh well, if you have a saddle, then like you're locked in and like you can't get out, and it's a bad thing." And I'm like, let's get creative then. You can have quick release straps, right? So you can have this, like, you strap into your saddle or whatever, and then you have like a quick release type situation. Get creative, get creative. We have, like, for example, for horses, you can keep a halter on your horse all the time. I personally don't recommend that, but you can get a breakaway halter, which there's a strap of leather along the top side of the halter. So if a horse gets its head caught with the halter on and they yank, which is what they do, the force will cause the leather to snap and it breaks off. Therefore, your horse is less likely to get severely injured. So you could have like breakaway style harnessing for the saddle if it's like a situation where you've got to get out. My defense for these dragons having saddles and stuff too is that it would add to the world building. So you could get a customized saddle, and there's a whole process behind that. Maybe, right, as you become a more elite dragon rider, you have enough power that you no longer need a saddle. A seasoned dragon rider shows up and they don't have a saddle, and everyone's in like awe about this. And it's because like they're such an elite dragon rider, they don't need the saddle anymore. So like they could start out with that and then graduate from it, and it would add to the world building. It would add to the dragon bonding. These are just simple things that could have been done that could have built it up, all right? Even in Aragon has to ride Saphira in a saddle. One of the parts of Aragon that always stuck with me was the first flight that Aragon does with Saphira. She's still a baby, so I don't think their thoughts are fully connected. Like, she doesn't have language still. And so it's this like really scary experience for Aragon, and he's riding her without a saddle. And it says that by the end of the flight, when he gets off of her, his inner thighs are completely shredded to bits because her scales rubbed him raw. And I'm like, that's cool. We don't get any details like that in regards to like the first flight or just the harrowing experience of being a dragon rider. We don't really get any visceral type descriptions like that. And so it doesn't feel all that magical or like awe-inspiring. The flight training in this book is severely lacking. We don't really get much description of Violet or any of the other riders really actually training with their dragons. There's like really small blips here and there, and I'm like, more. You need to have more with the dragons. That's really what we're all here for. We're here for the dragons, and we get so little of them. It's honestly infuriating. We get better written scenes than we do anything else in this book when that's such a small part of the book. I know Rebecca Yarros can write well because honestly, there's quite a few parts of Fourth Wing and Iron Flame that I'm like, there it is. There's a snippet right there. This woman can write. It's almost like it's just not even tapped into, and it's very discouraging to read. Back to the whole concept of dragons make their own orders and dragons don't answer to humans. This constantly flip-flops back and forth. For example, in Iron Flame, Violet is given orders that Andarna has to make an appearance at these training sessions. But remember, at the time, Andarna's in her sleep thing because she's growing. So she can't show up because she's sleeping. And then Varys is mad that Andarna isn't making an appearance, so he starts to punish Violet for Andarna not showing up. Again, Varys lifts his brows at me. Unless your Golden One would like to fly up and say hello, since she failed to appear as ordered. If she joins us, we'll only task you with 3 more. So she's punished for her dragon not showing up, but yet at the same time, a human can't order a dragon around to do anything, but at the same time, a human can then punish the dragon rider for the dragon not listen. It's nonsensical. Going back to whenever Violet is being punished for Andarna not making an appearance, Taryn literally sits there and watches Varys torment Violet and punish her because Andarna is not making an appearance. He's physically watching, and it takes him until Violet collapses for him to step in and say no more. This dragon is the biggest, baddest boy on the block, and he just lets stuff happen around him. If you want me to believe this dragon is big and bad, then I need to see him acting big and bad. Because I can tell you what right now, like if I saw anybody like, okay, I don't have a dragon, but I've ridden horses and I've had strong bonds with my horses. If I saw anybody sit there and start beating the crap out of my horse in front of me, I would lay them out flat on the ground within seconds. There would be no like, oh, I'm just gonna sit here and see how this pans out. Absolutely not, okay? That's abuse. There will be no punishment, Terran roars, and from the abrupt head jerks of the dragons on the field, including Solus, everyone heard him. It is not within your power to summon a dragon. And this is obviously him saying this to Varish when Violet collapses from the punishment of having to wield her lightning signet over and over and over again, because Andarna isn't there. I was like, dude, why did you wait until, there's no repercussions or consequences for this bad behavior, but you're the biggest, baddest dragon on the field, like, the higher-ups in Basgaia don't even respect dragons. Which is like, that doesn't make any sense to me. Another detail, particularly in Iron Flame, that stood out to me distinctly is that the dragons can't ever find their riders. In Iron Flame, Violet goes missing for 5 days while she's being tortured, and Terran just can't find her.
Thank you for nothing, you useless reptile.
She's been fed that liquid stuff that blocks her ability to speak with Terran. I would think, with how dragons and their riders bond, that even if they were severed intellectually, like couldn't talk to one another, the bond goes deeper than that, and that the dragon would still be able to almost feel or sense or smell they're human, right? Like, dragons are supposed to be these elite creatures, and these dragons seem like useless. I'm like, so you're telling me also that, like, while this whole time while Violet's gone, that he doesn't flip Basgaia upside down to find her? I think it actually would have been really cool in Iron Flame if Violet went missing for 2 days and Terran couldn't find her and he's panicked and no one else knows where she is either, that he literally starts to like burn the War College down to the ground. He and a bunch of other dragons team up and they're like, we have to find her because some shenanigans is going on here with the authorities at this college, and like, we aren't standing for this. Because remember, they don't have to answer to humans. So what's stopping them from absolutely flattening everything to find Violet? I really was hoping to see that. And then, you know, Xaden shows up and he's the one that ends up rescuing her. And I'm just kind of like, I wanted to see the dragons. I wanted to see the dragons rescue her, to be honest. Or you could have had it that like Xaden and the dragons together found her. I don't know. Something a little more creative, and to show that a dragon would go to great extreme lengths to rescue their rider. But then again, you know, I guess that wouldn't happen because dragons in this world don't apparently really like humans, and humans don't really like dragons. So whatever. Pretty much the entirety of Iron Flame, Terran is never where he needs to be. He's always minutes away, minutes out, 3 minutes away whenever Violet needs him. And it was so infuriating to read. I have notes written in my Iron Flame book where I just straight up wrote, Terran is just a GPS the entirety of Iron Flame. ETA, 3 minutes. ETA, 30 seconds. ETA, and then Violet's like, she's always like, we don't have 30 seconds. In 30 seconds, we're gonna be all fried. And I'm like, oh, there's so many moments where Terran's like, I'm not there, but I'm coming. And I'm like, why aren't you there? Where are you?
Where are you?
He's too big to fit places. And I'm like, well, then maybe we could have rethought dragons being the size of a freaking mountainside or something. Maybe we could have made them a little on the smaller side, still large, but still like small enough that they could fit places, or I don't know, anything to address these issues, because it got so repetitive. That's kind of, I think, what I found the most annoying is that it was so repetitive that Terran was never where he needed to be. He couldn't help Violet while she was being tortured. He's constantly minutes away from her. At one point, she's being like held out. She's being like held by her neck by that kid that's, I don't know, I can't remember if the person was Venom or whatever, but being held by her neck outside, and the person's like threatening to drop her, and Terran's like, I'm coming, and I'm like, well,
Where are you?
he's not there to help her then. Like, he's just never there when she really needs help.
I'm so sorry.
Why have a dragon? What's the point of even bonding a dragon if you don't even get to do like badass stuff like getting caught out of the air, and the dragons aren't involved enough? And that's what I wanted. And I feel that's what a lot of people wanted. They wanted more dragons. I read so many comments of people just saying, I want more dragons. Where are they? Violet cannot control her signet. This doesn't make any sense to me either. Signet powers come about once a rider bonds a dragon, and that power is from the dragon, and Violet cannot control her signet. And so she's just like willy-nilly striking lightning down here and there, and Taryn, for some reason, like, can't help her figure that out, but she got the power from him. She's channeling his power, and that's where it came from. So to me, it would make more sense that the dragons help their riders figure out how to manage and control their signets, but there's none of that. Here's this new power. Hope you don't roast yourself alive. Good luck. It's another detail that would have really benefited from being further expounded upon. Violet doesn't start getting any training for her signet until, what, like towards the end of Iron Flame, when she starts taking classes or whatever from the one guy. And I'm like, this girl should have been getting help with the signet power as soon as it manifested. What do dragons eat? We get references that they eat a lot of sheep, but then, like, who are the people that feed the dragons? Do the dragons hunt at all? What do they hunt? What other animals or creatures are in this universe that the dragons eat? They're large animals, so is there a large other type of mythical creature that they primarily hunt in the Vale? Like, there's no reference to really any other types of creatures besides like griffins and wyvern. That's it. But this being a fantasy world, it'd be kind of cool if we had more world building around the different types of animals or like fantastical creatures in this world, you know? I remember at one point Taryn says something like, I'm gonna go eat a whole flock of sheep. And I'm like, okay, well that's a lot of sheep. And so who are the sheep farmers who are supplying the dragons with all the food that they could ever want? The dragons, we don't really get to see the dragons really be all that cool until towards the end of Iron Flame. Yeah, Iron Flame, when Andarna kills Solus because he's trying to kill Violet and all of her gang. I think she kills Venom at the end of Iron Flame too. I was applauding that. I was like, yay, Andarna, thank you for doing your job. The descriptions behind Andarna killing off these people or these enemies is it's so anticlimactic. Like, I would think a dragon and a dragon fighting would result in a really cool kind of like combat scene. We don't get it. She just like kills them and then the chapter ends. And we don't get, or like or she kills them and somebody blacks out and then we don't get any real explanation or look into what that was like. It's anticlimactic, it falls flat. I wanted to see more of dragons being like the terrifying creatures that they supposedly are. In conclusion to this rather lengthy rant I've gone on, the bottom line is this: the writing isn't immersive enough. What does it feel like to fly? What does it sound like? What do the dragon's scales feel like? Are they soft? Are they warm? Are they cold? Are they hard? Are they flexible? Are they taut? What does that feel like? What are their colors? Are there patterns? Are they camouflaged? Are they bright colors? Or are they muted tones? Are they earth tones? We just get basic color descriptions and that's it. I want to know if they've got shimmer, if they have like a matte finish, if they're more armored, or are their scales glass-like? No different physiques are ever described. And like I said in the beginning of the video, I think that if you're going to have each tail basically be its own weapon, then the physique of the dragon needs to coincide with how that weapon is kind of used in combat. So like the club tail is a more stout, robust dragon versus the dagger tail is more streamlined and athletic. I think there's like features that could be described, whether it has spines or like along its back, or it's got whiskers, or, you know, thinking more like the Chinese style dragons that have like, they're often pictured with these like really long whiskers. Like, do they have like a beard? Do they have feathers on them at all? We have a feather tail. So like, what does that look like? Are any of them fur-like? Are they, you know what I mean? The writing and the immersion it's just not there. And that is why this series ultimately has been such a disappointment for me. If you like this series, that's fine. I understand why people like it. It had all the elements there that would have made it really special, and it just fell flat due to a lack of immersive writing and world building. I think everything I've described is kind of baseline of how any writer should approach how they write their books and their worlds. It's so disappointing to read these books and be like, oh, it was close, like it had the blueprint for being really cool, but it just didn't execute it. If anybody has recommendations for books that actually do the whole Dragon Rider stuff and do it well, please leave those in the comments for me. I think that's where I'm gonna wrap this video up, guys. Thanks so much for listening to me blab about dragons and all that stuff. In the grand scheme of everything going on in the world, it is a very minuscule thing to be ranting about. Bonnie, you're pet. Oh my gosh, girl, what are you doing? Again, if you love the series, that's totally fine. I understand why so many people absolutely adore this series. I am cautiously optimistic that Onyx Storm might be the book that turns the series into a better direction. It might be too late for that now though. But we'll see, right? Let's give it a chance. Thank you so much. Please like, comment, and subscribe. I greatly appreciate you all. I will see y'all in the next one. Toodles!